Hello! 3.4, the quadratic equation. Pages 122 through 124. Quadratic equation. Alright, the first thing we need to know, you must be equal to 0 on one side of the equation. Alright, in order for this quadratic equation to work, you must set one side equal to 0. After you do that, we're going to use the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then we can write it in the quadratic formula right here. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, so let's just get to it. Right, we can solve the quadratic equation for two real solutions, and first thing I need to do is get 0 on one side of the equation, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, giving me x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals zip. Alright, then what I would do, or what, you don't have to, but if you need to represent a is 1, b is 3, and c is negative 5. I'm going to plug it into this quadratic formula right here. I'm not going to rewrite it in the quadratic formula since we have it right there. But x equals negative b, so negative 3, plus or minus the square root b squared, so that's 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 5, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Alright, and I'll just kind of move up here if you guys don't mind. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root. Alright, so I get 9. 3 squared is 9. And then negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and combine. So I get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 29 all over 2. And this right here is a completely acceptable answer. This is SRF form, simplest radical form. Again, this is two answers represented by that plus or minus. So it's really negative 3 plus square root of 29 over 2 and negative 3 minus the square root of 29 over 2. This is a nice way to write it though in a condensed form. You may be asked to put it in your calculator and write it as decimals, but you don't have to if it's just asking you to solve for x. Alright, if you guys could pause that, or first of all, if you could try number 2, pause it, try number 2. I'm going to go ahead and show the answer here. Check your work. Alright, there you go. The answer for number 2 is x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 34 over 3. You do need to make sure you take that square root of 136 and simplify it right there by pulling out any perfect squares. And voila, that is simplest radical form. Concept number 2. Solving an equation with one real solution. Alright, well, same idea, right? I'm going to move everything over to one side of the equation, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 12x from both sides. I'm also going to subtract 4 from both sides, giving me 0 on one side of the equation. So I have 25x squared minus 20x minus 4 equals zip. Alright, what's A? A is 25. What's B? Negative 20. What's C? Negative 4. Okay, I'm going to plug this into the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, so it's really minus negative 20 or positive 20, plus or minus the square root of negative 20 squared minus 4 times 25 times negative 4. Just extend that line a little bit longer, all over 2 times a, which is 25. Okay, again, I kind of run out of space here, so I'm going to move up. And here we go. X equals 20 plus or minus the square root. Negative 20 squared would be 400 minus negative 4 times 25 is negative 100 times negative 4, which is positive 400. Did I do something wrong? Negative, positive. I did. Should plus 4, plus 4, plus 4, plus 4. There we go. My bad. I should have added 4 to both sides and not subtracted 4. Anyway, I'm going to keep on going. All over 2 times 25, which is 50. Should have just wrote 50. Got messed up. Alright, x equals 20 plus or minus, well, the square root of 400 minus 400 is 0, all over 50. And what's the square root of 0, guys? Just 0, right? So I can just really cross that out. And this is really just 20 divided by 50. And cross out that 0. And what's my answer? X equals 2/5. Or if you wanted 0.4 is fine. Either way. And voila. We have our answer. Sorry about the screw up there. If you could, go ahead, flip the page and try number 4. I'm going to go ahead and show the answer. So pause now. Alright, here we go. Go ahead and move on everything over. A is 4, B is 16, C is 16. Plug it in the quadratic formula. You're going to simplify to negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 8. Again, it's just really negative 16 over 8, which is negative 2. Pause if you need more time. I'm going to go ahead and get off of that. Okay, concept number 3. Solving an equation with an imaginary solution. Alright, so same concept. I'm using quadratic formula. I'm going to subtract 13 from both sides, canceling out that, giving myself negative x squared plus 4x minus 13 equals 0. A is negative 1. B is 4. C is negative 13. Plug it in the quadratic formula. X equals negative 4, opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared, 4 squared, minus 4 times A, which is negative 1, times C, which is negative 13, all over 2 times negative 1. Okay, I'm going to scoot on up here, and I get X equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared 16. It's going to be plus, and 13 times 4 is 52. I'm sorry, it's going to be minus. There's 3 negative signs there. All over negative 2. Okay, so I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root. Well, 52 minus 36 is actually 36. I'm sorry, minus 16 is 36. I do have a negative 52, so it's negative 36 all over negative 2. What's the square root of negative 36? Well, 6i, right? So I get negative 4 plus or minus 6i all divided by negative 2. I'm going to simplify. Since I have that negative 2 right there, I am going to look to factor out something from the top that I can cancel that out with. And a matter of fact, I could factor out a negative 2 from negative 4, and I get 2. A negative 2 from 6i, and I get 3i. It's plus and minus, so that won't really affect that. All over negative 2. And then I can simplify by going ahead and canceling out that negative 2 right there. So what's x? X equals 2 plus or minus 3i. And that is 2 different answers, 2 plus 3i and 2 minus 3i. Alright. go ahead and try number 6. Same idea. You are going to have an imaginary part. Again, you always want to write your real part first, your imaginary part second there. And give it a go. Pause now because I'm going to go ahead and show this answer. Alright, there we go. So, same idea, get 0 on one side, plug it into the quadratic formula, simplify, we get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 10. Negative 16 under the radical would take plus or minus 4i. I factored out a 2 there, which I can cancel with the 10. Even though I still have a 5 left in my denominator, I get x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2i over 5. Alright, keep on going. The next part is the discriminant. And this expression, b squared minus 4ac, which is what's underneath your radical in the quadratic formula, that determines the kind of real or imaginary number, 1 or 2, or the solution of the quadratic, just like we showed in all 3. Right? So if I flip the page, if I have that b squared minus 4ac is greater than 1, right, like 16, then I take the square root of 16 and I get 4. And then it would have 2 real solutions, or plus or minus 4 I should say. And 2 real solutions means that it crosses that x-intercept in 2 places. Alright, if I have b squared minus 4ac equals 0, that gives me 1 real solution. And that means it only crosses that x-intercept at 1 place. And then if I have b squared minus 4ac equals or is less than 0 or a negative number, right? Square root of a negative gives me that imaginary solution. And that's what it looks like, right? It doesn't cross the x-intercept. That's what the imaginary solution is doing, right? We are solving quadratics that don't cross that x-intercept. That's what that imaginary solution is. Okay. So, we have concept 4, which is just finding the discriminant. And what I think I'm going to do is just stop this video, and I'm doing the next one as I have a little more time. One thing I think I messed up was, when it equals 0, you get the square root of 0, which is just 0. And that's why you have that one solution, like we did in concept 2. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stop this one and start a new one.